12 years ago, LSU last won a national championship with Alabama on the sideline, and at that point, Nick Saban just starting to build a program in Tuscaloosa, of course, with 7 wins and 6 losses, but much has changed since then. But we've come full circle with LSU claiming another national championship with a third head coach for those 3 national titles going back to 2003, and of course, Nick Saban starting the whole process and building that program at LSU. We got Stephen M. Smith on the line from touchdownalabama.com. Please join him and the rest of the staff right there talking college football with Alabama first and foremost. And of course, this is Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, where we discuss and debate it like nobody else. All right, Stephen, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, Mark. Can't complain here. We got ourselves a heavyweight prize fight last night.
We did for about 3 quarters until LSU delivered the knockout and winning by 17. The offensive proficiency and just the prolific numbers just continued, even against a Clemson defense that looked to be up to the challenge. 628 yards of total offense for Joe Burrow and company. This is an offensive display unlike many that we've seen.
It is, and Joe Brady, Steve Ensminger, Coach O, that whole group did a fantastic job this season of just scheming up an offense that not many people could. I don't want to say prepare for, but not many people could stop. Just seeing how Joe Burrow, the numbers he put up through the air, breaking Colt Brennan's single-season touchdown record. Colt Brennan had 55 for the University of Hawaii. Joe Burrow, I believe, ended his single season with 60, if I'm not mistaken. So what a year for Joe Burrow, but not just him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire at running back, over 1,000 yards rushing. I believe had 110 yards against Clemson. The likes of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, who had a big night against the Tigers of the ACC, and also Terrace Marshall and Thaddeus Moss. Just you have you got a well-oiled machine and big-time playmakers all around this offense. So you got to give kudos to Ed O, bringing Joe Brady in here, finding a way to make this offense as prolific as it's been. The toughness that Steve Ensminger showed as offensive coordinator, laying his ego to the side, embracing Joe Brady, but also coaching in the manner of, despite losing his daughter-in-law to that horrific plane accident, and the toughness to kind of keep it all together, keep this team in the forefront. Just a very special season for LSU.
Nick Saban and Alabama don't like to see anybody else hoisting that trophy, but it's different. It's just a different dynamic when, let's say, over the past decade, we've only have had a handful of teams win the national championship, but it's different when it's Florida State or Ohio State or even Clemson winning 2 championships when it's outside the conference in the division. It's a different dynamic when we see Auburn do it in 2010 and then get back within seconds in 2013. And of course, now LSU last night, where it's the direct competition in the division that has ascended to the top of college football. And where do you think this is going to unfold from here in regards to the prospects of the 2 programs and where they're headed?
Well, right now, it's a different dynamic just due to the national championship, as you mentioned, stays in the Southeastern Conference. But what it does that kind of, I guess, helps Alabama is if you look at it from this prism, if Clemson were to have won last night, the national story becomes, okay, Clemson's now the team in college football. They're the marquee program. They have surpassed Alabama in terms of the college football playoff. Dabo Swinney now becomes the king, the coach of the marquee program. Just seeing how, both teams would have gotten to the big dance 5 times. Both teams would have made it to the national championship game 4 times. And the difference maker would have been Clemson winning 1 more championship than Alabama had won. But with LSU winning, it kind of quiets down the talk of the potential Clemson dynasty. But the question now becomes, how can LSU sustain this? That becomes the question, because even with Joe Brady getting the extension, part of the loophole to his extension is he still can talk to other teams if he wants to be a head coach in a collegiate program or a coach in the National Football League, provided somebody lands him an offer that he does not want to refuse. So there's still a loophole there in the Joe Brady contract. But on top of that, when you lose Joe Burrow, a quarterback that was just legendary this year, and on top of that, you potentially could lose Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss, just a lot of go-getters on that offensive side of the football. On top of that, I haven't even begun to name the guys who would lose defensively, coached by Dave Aranda on defense. So the question being, how can LSU sustain this? What we have seen with Nick Saban, it really doesn't matter if it's a different cast of players or coaches. Aside from the recent 2 years, Saban has proven that he can sustain success with a different cast. When you look at quarterbacks, he did it in 2009 with Greg McElroy. He did it in 2011 and in 2012 with A.J. McCarron. He came back with Jacob Coker in 2015. And then 2016, you had the combination of Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa. And then from the coaching aspect, he did it with Jim McElwain as an offensive coordinator, and then Doug Nussmeier, and then Lane Kiffin. Defensively, he's done it with Kirby Smart and then Jeremy Pruitt. So Saban has shown that you can give me a coaching turnover, though it hurts me. You can give me a coaching turnover. You can give me a different cast of players. I will find a way to get it done. This now becomes the question for Edo, for Steve Ensminger, for Joe Brady. You're going to have a different quarterback. You're going to have a different receiver. You're going to have nuances on defense. You could potentially probably even have a different running back and a different tight end. But can you sustain it? Can you get yourself back to the mountain and get this done every single year? This becomes the biggest question. This becomes the biggest challenge for LSU.
Absolutely. It's a great accomplishment to win a national championship, but it's legendary to be able to build a program and sustain it year after year after year, despite personnel losses, despite coaching losses. And obviously, Nick Saban has done that better than anyone in America in recent generations. And Dabo Swinney has followed his lead and been able to sustain it now for 5 years at Clemson, competing for a national championship for 5 consecutive seasons. Got Stephen M. Smith on the line from touchdownalabama.com. Please join him and the rest of the staff covering Alabama athletics. All right. As a footnote to that, I don't know if you have anything to add on, as we back in the old days would look forward to the morning paper to see the final AP Top 25 poll after the what was then just the periphery of bowl games, Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, and then they would vote and you would decide who was the national champion and open up the paper the next morning. As a footnote to LSU, of course, as national champion being voted number 1, Clemson 2, Ohio State 3, and on down the line. Alabama in that 8th spot, maintaining a string of top 10 finishes under Nick Saban that go back to his 2008 team, of course, that lost the SEC championship game to Florida coming off his first season in 2007.
And looking at that, Mark, I mean, a lot of fans would be, well, some fans would be okay with the top 10 finishing at number 8. You're going to always have a couple of fans that feel like, Alabama deserves to be a little bit higher than 8. But for the most part, the finish at number 8, not a bad finish to me. I mean, the only team you can kind of make an argument for, you have Georgia ahead of Alabama. Of course, Georgia got smacked by LSU in the SEC championship game, and then the horrific regular season loss at home to an unranked South Carolina team. So then there's that. But at the end all be all, I'm fine with Alabama at 8. I mean, this adds more motivation going into this offseason, spring ball coming up in March, and how Nick Saban and this coaching staff will plan to get this program back to a top of the mountain in terms of winning a national championship. So while many people are being like, 8, no, give us 6, 5, 4, anything but 8. For me, finishing at 8, despite the issues you had on defense, the injuries you sustained prior to the season and going into the season and throughout the season, especially with Tua Tagovailoa getting hurt, despite all the junk that happened, and you finish at number 8, you finish in the top 10 from the AP poll, I'm okay with this. This sets up motivation for spring, motivation for summer workouts, motivation for fall camp, most importantly, motivation for the 2020 season.